US President Donald Trump is looking to get tough on trade with China by seeking tariffs on up to $60 billion worth of Chinese imported goods, mostly on tech and telecoms. But the list could be a lot longer. China runs a $375 billion trade surplus with the United States. The Trump administration wants to reduce that. This could be via indefinite tariffs or investment restrictions. Some tariffs may include labor-intensive products, so your jeans, shoes, and phones may get a little bit pricier. It's a move to punish China for trade policies that Trump thinks is unfair. China says both countries need to work together to move forward. But the biggest question is, if it's pushed back, how will China retaliate?
And with the view from China is Joel Labi, who sent this report from Hong Kong.
Well, as if to add more fuel to this trade war fire, Donald Trump may be about to take a direct shot at China. Two sources telling Reuters the president wants to slap $60 billion worth of tariffs on Chinese imports. The targets, technology and telecoms. The reason? To punish Beijing for its harsh policies towards American businesses. To do business in China, US firms essentially have to give up their tech secrets to the government. Now, on top of this, a third source is even suggesting this tax hit could widen, taking in things like T-shirts, jeans, shoes, items that call for intensive labour. The White House isn't actually commenting on the timing or size of any move at the moment. Beijing, however, has hit back, saying their trade relations should not be a zero-sum game. The government also calling on the US to use constructive means to manage all this tension.
Trade and economic cooperation between China and the United States should not be a competition where one decreases while the other increases. Neither should it be a zero-sum game in which you lose but I win. We've said many times that China resolutely opposes any kind of unilateral protectionist trade measures. If in the end the United States takes actions that harm China's interests, China will have to take measures to firmly protect its legitimate rights.
Now, Trump has already ignored global critics and pushed ahead with more protectionist policies. He's rolled out new import taxes on steel and aluminium. And while China doesn't appear to be too concerned about that, singling it out from the Oval Office may very well evoke a much harsher response. And if China decides to retaliate, where will that leave Washington?
Before we go on, a little bit of breaking news for you that Larry Kudlow, a former CNBC columnist, has been named the new National Economic Advisor to Donald Trump. We'll be covering that in more detail in the days to come. Meanwhile, let's go to New York and talk to Anne Lee now. She's a professor of economics and finance at New York University. Hello, Anne. Great to have you on Money Talks again. Let's talk China and let's talk China trade. What do you think China's response is going to be if Donald Trump does slap these tariffs on $60 billion worth of Chinese imports?
I believe China's response will be proportional. China will already have drawn up a list of possible ways to retaliate. Certainly, China imports a great deal of agricultural products from the U.S., also, it's natural gas, as well as deals to buy Boeing planes and automobiles. And so China has many ways to retaliate as well. And this certainly won't bode well for U.S. consumers or Chinese consumers. And you know, the list is long. So while the U.S. may have a long list, China also has a long list.
But having said that, China has been accused of stealing trade secrets for many years from the U.S. and other places as well. The most recent case was that of wind turbine maker Sinovel, which was convicted of stealing software. Do you not think, though, it is about time that the international community does something about China's behaviour?
I'm not endorsing China's behavior. What I will say is that all countries have been stealing intellectual property for since time immemorial. I mean, countries such as The Europeans have stolen from each other. They've also stolen from the U.S. U.S. has stolen from European countries. Everyone steals IP secrets from each other. This is nothing new. This has been going on for decades, hundreds of years even. And so what this is really about U.S. feeling fear and paranoia that the Chinese are gaining economic influence around the world, and that someday that economic and influence may lead to political influence. And the U.S. is very scared of China overturning the global order and the balance of power. And this is what it's all about. It's really not about violating IP contracts or whatnot. Yes, that's not ideal, and that could be enforced through various slaps on the wrist with fines and whatnot, but this happens with every country. And so the real issue is what I'm talking about, is the geopolitical issue, and right now starting out with trade wars, but it could easily escalate into something else.
Okay, and you say that it has been going on for years, and you're absolutely right, it has. But aren't we now supposed to be living in a rules-based world with international arbiters of these rules? And aren't these kinds of practices really not supposed to happen?
Of course, there's the so-called rules-based, but we all know that rules can be bent. There can be exceptions to rules. Rules are subject to human interpretation. Even courts can be stacked with people who are biased, so you can have biased juries. So they're all imperfect. They're all subject to human biases, and therefore it's always going to be about politics in the end. Because if you think about it, it's, you know, whoever's powerful are the ones who are setting the rules, and who are you know, rules and laws are really just one step from politics.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Great to have your insights, Professor Anne Lee of New York University. Thank you very much.